Hey, welcome to Wolf's Watch. I'm Wolf. Thanks for being part of the conversation. Live, 21st century television, right? Live and interactive. Add your comments. This is a discussion. So I want to hear your comments, add your questions. Even if this is a replay that you're watching, go ahead. We keep track of comments. Always like to respond back, hear from what you think as well. I want to start today with more economic news. The hits just keep coming. January data is out, and it shows that housing starts, single family residences, dropped significantly in January versus December. Now, maybe that's a little bit seasonal. Could be a leading indicator of a recession because housing starts tend to be a leader, right? If you see housing starts dropping, a lot of times that's a leading indicator that a recession is coming or helps trigger, because construction is such a huge part of the U.S. economy. There's some other trends going on there, though. I'm checking some notes here to get the right information to you. So one of the trends, though, is to multifamily construction. So condos, apartments, that has been staying is more stable, right? So you're looking at a 5.6% drop in single family residences, 2.7% drop in multifamily. So there's other trends that are pushing things towards multifamily, but not a good indicator given that both are coming down. Take like the state of California. They are making it more and more difficult and adding more disincentives. It's a stated policy that they want to make a shift from single family homes to multifamily because for their climate change improvement program, they want to have as many people as possible living in higher density housing on their government-run transportation corridors, trains, buses, and whatnot, and living and working as close to home as possible, so that they're not driving vehicles, which they say are bringing about climate change. So those types of trends push more towards push some of the single family residence numbers down. Overall indicator to watch, because if it's a trend, then something, if it's something we see a month, 2 months, then 3 months, that could be signs of we're heading into a recession. So what are you going to do in case of a recession, right? Inflation is a huge problem. Now take a look at this. Inflation for the construction industry has been a big problem because this is tracking the cost of plywood, which is used a lot in construction, as you might imagine. So follow the cursor. So here was what happened. So this is in 2020 here, right? So you're looking at like $410, peaking at $460 plus per board foot. But during the Great Recession, it doubled, dropped down again. 2021, as we're coming out of the Great Recession, when we're having the supply chain shortages, plus a boost in construction rebounding from everything being locked down and shut down in 2020. Look at this, it jumps up over $1,600, almost $1,700 per board foot. Now, at that time, I was talking to colleagues in the construction industry. For example, one of the things that I heard was a sheet of plywood, right, as you might use to put on a wall, frame a floor. A sheet of plywood went from like $40 to $190 if you could get them. Because of the supply chain disruptions, they were having trouble getting them. They were getting half of what they ordered 30 days late. So that's what you're seeing at this peak here. So then things normalized as we would expect. Bring you back to the chart here. Things normalized a little bit as we expect. Never really got back to what we saw in this normal economy. Is what we call the normal economy, or was the pre-COVID economy, pre-great lockdown economy. Let's call it that. So in the pre-great lockdown economy, we never really returned to that. Got kind of close, got down to 400 and let me see. Geez, got my reading glasses on, still having a hard time seeing this for you. So it's down to 496, right? Which is still good 15, 20% above what it was prior to the great lockdown. But now look at where we're at here again. We're at $1,290 per board foot. So now we're getting back up into that, tripling of what it cost to buy plywood. And this is just one example of construction materials. Plywood is 3 times as expensive as it was before the great lockdown. in say 2019, even early 2020. It really dropped down. Look at this, it bottomed out at 257 pre-Great Lockdown we're in the midst of the Great Lockdown, but that was when everything was pretty much getting shut down, April 2020. But again, we're at 3 times what it was before. So that kind of price pressure is causing problems with, oh, pardon my $10 bifocals there. That kind of cost pressure is causing problems with the construction industry and as a disincentive to build because it's making it less profitable. Supplies are still disrupted some. But still, how are you preparing for more inflation, which is here to stay? The Fed has announced that they're going to do even more radical interest rate increase in March than they had planned. They're going to go doing more faster to try to stop this incredible inflation that we're having, almost 10% for producers, at the wholesale level, the materials level, and 7.5% for consumers. That's craziness, right? That has a big impact when the target is a max of 3% for the Fed. So looking at going, it is near, it's approaching 3 times what they want it to be as a maximum for a healthy economy. Interest rates going up, increasing the cost of money, right? The cost to borrow money for your business is one way they slow stuff down to put pressure on prices, bring prices to bring inflation under control. Whether or not that'll work or whether or not that'll push us back into a stagflation scenario like we had in the late 70s, early 80s, where we had high interest rates, interest rates 10, 15, 18, 20, 18%. Right? Imagine not 3%. Right now it's home loans are still under 30-year home loan is still under 4% interest. Imagine if that goes to 18% like it did in late 70s, early 80s. Inflation, 12, 16%. Right? So think about that. That and hiring, the economy, slow growth, stagflation, right? Again, how are you preparing for that? What are you doing and let's talk internally, right? One of the things is you prepare on the market side. Got some notes here. I'm going to take a look at for you. But what happens if, what happens if that becomes a scenario? Your cost of borrowing goes to 15% and everything that you're buying is increasing 2% per month. What are you going to do? How are you going to manage that? How have you been preparing for that? Large organizations can absorb some of the costs. They can lay people off to control, to take a quick haircut, as they like to say. Makes it sound like doesn't really hurt anybody, right? Oh, we'll just take a haircut. No, that means businesses are failing, right? People like you're an entrepreneur. You understand how hard that is on your side of that equation. I certainly do. Been there, trust me. And so large organizations can adapt a little bit short term, not so much long term. You've got an advantage though, because you're running a mid-sized business, a large, small business, and you can adapt faster, right? You've got an opportunity to scale in 2022. How are you going to do that with high inflation, possibly high cost of money, high interest rates, and needing to, really control costs? That's a challenge in scaling anyway. How do you scale your business without adding a lot of cost, right? Bring in another dollar. How do you get revenue to go up faster than cost is going up? That's what I wanted to talk about with you today. A little bit on that. If you can take the biggest challenge area in your business or the biggest leverage point in your business and make a dramatic improvement to that, it's say 30 days. Let's get crazy and take a really long time, 45 days. Would you want to learn more about how to do that? The case study that I use in my book that's coming up, we had a factory. Now, if you run a service company, bear with me. This applies to you as well. This was in a factory in Los Angeles that was having a hard time with rising costs. And they were considering leaving the Los Angeles area. And looking and going, look, we need to get our costs under control. And if you can make it profitable enough, we'll stay. So we targeted their biggest production line. They had 3 assembly lines in this facility. They had a big fabrication area, so they bring raw metal in, or bending metal and stamping sheet metal, assembling it in a product that they send out. They've got 3 different production lines that they do. Some paint operations. So as part of that, some of the parts had to be painted. So we took their biggest production line, highest volume, biggest dollar volume through the business, and worked with their team to reset it in 2 weeks. And we were able to reduce, imagine this, 2 weeks from start to finish, to be able to get 40% productivity gain, to cut operating costs 60% on the production line, and dramatically we increased their flexibility by 80%. So what that means is they could adapt, they could change what they were making for their customers. Say a customer makes the changes in order, the time that took them to get that product in and off the assembly line was reduced by 80%. So they were much more flexible to changes in customer demand, customer requests. So they could accommodate customers on special requests a lot more. And if there was a change in the marketplace, they could adapt by either making more or less without disrupting the production lines. It took a long time to make that happen before. So imagine 80%, only 2 weeks. Let it run for another 2 weeks so that their accounting folks, they had a cost accounting department, since it's a factory, large enough to do that. 90,000 square feet, 180 plus employees, and cost accounting validated. Yeah, these are the correct numbers. So imagine being able to do that. So let's call that 30 days. Well, let's make it 45, because we did some pre-work on that to know what could be done before teaching their people how to do it, training them how to do it. And then they went through the rest of their company, the master plan that had been laid out for that company. But here's the thing. It was possible to make a dramatic improvement in less than 30 days for that area. So their revenue per employee on that assembly line more than doubled in less than 30 days by managing the systems. See, that's a key to being able to scale your business, is the systems. And I don't mean software. It's not just software. That's part of it. It's what we do online and offline. What are the steps that you go through to create and deliver the value that your customers are paying you for? That's the system. And you need to have systems in order to be able to scale. You need to be able to adapt systems in order to be able to scale, right? If you don't have a system, it's going to at best hamper, most likely defeat your attempt to fail. Not fail. It's going to I'm sorry. You will fail, because it's chaos. Without systems, there's total chaos. You don't know where to plug more people in to get more stuff out as you're scaling up the business, right? So it's spending money in a very inefficient way. Very inefficient processes, very inefficient growth. It won't stick. That's why there's a 70% failure rate, according to Ken Blanchard companies, on change initiatives within companies in the United States. Don't be one of the 70%. It's quite simple to not be. The first step in that is knowing where you've got the best leverage within your company. As you're scaling your company, if you add another zero to your to your sales, right? Order of magnitude increase. When we're talking about scale, talking order of magnitude increase, not just talking 3, 4, 5, even 10% growth. If you add another zero to your sales, where's your biggest problem? Now, it could be on sales and marketing. Yeah, you got to have systems for sales and marketing. It could be internally in the delivery of what you have, what you provide to your customers. If it's a service, where do you get more people to deliver the service? How much more volume can your people handle in delivering the service before it starts to degrade the quality, before they don't have the time to adequately serve customers? Could be in your customer service, right? If you've been on the phone lately with your cable company or your phone company, or fill in the blank, right? There's a lot of big organizations that for decades have been stand-up comedian targets because they're so bad at customer service. You're on the phone for hours, you get different, different answers from different people. Nobody seems to know what's going on. And I had a scenario with our cable company. We went round and round about an issue for 4 months. Spent close to 5 hours on the phone. The last time that I talked to him, I was on the phone for almost an hour and a half, talked to 5 different people. And by the time I got to the last person told me they had no record of the problem that we've been talking about for months ever having occurred, and they basically just didn't move. They nullified the whole thing. So we didn't get to implement the change that we were trying to make to our account with them. And it's a shame, we were trying to do more business with them, but they couldn't seem to put that together. What kind of experience do your customers have? So that's part of your capacity planning. In a factory, it's tangible things. You see parts going together, so it's maybe a little bit clearer than in a service. The same thing happens whether it's customer service, whether it's software delivery, whether it's writing code, whether you're offering software as a service. There's a capacity issue there in terms of the customer experience. Think of it that way. What is your customer experience when you buy a car? What is your customer experience when you're using a piece of critical, business critical software? What is your experience when you're dealing with customer service, or one of your leadership team is talking with you about the experience they're having with one of the suppliers you work with on their customer service experience, right? What do you want to create within your company? So you look at that. Where's your biggest opportunity for benefiting your customer and benefiting your business? And those two have to go together. Customer first, but also really can't say a close second. There is no first and second. It is both about what benefits the customer and benefits your business the most. And you can add a third leg in there if you like. What benefits you as the business owner as well, and moves you closer to where you're headed, your goals and objectives. That's the first step in implementing that kind of rapid systems development, systems change. And then again, not software systems, but physical system plus software. Okay, in delivering value to your customer. If you can do that in 30 days, wouldn't you want to learn more about it? If you would, if you think there's any chance that might even be real, or you want to say, nah, I don't know if that's real, but tell me some more, shoot me an email at info@adventureceo.com and say, okay, even if you're not buying it, say, hey, I'm not buying it, but I want to hear more. Because if it was possible, you'd want to know, wouldn't you? Right. So this isn't a sales tactic or anything. This is just we'll give you some more information on what are those steps. What does that look like? How you go about that? So this is Wolf's Watch. I'm Wolf. Thanks for joining us. That's the tip for today. We like to do an on this day as well in history. And this ties into our conversation today. On this day in history, the first volume of the 6-volume history called The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire was released in 1776. On this day in 1776, and that's relevant to you and your company because part of the problem, one of the big issues, the big themes that came out of that is the Roman Empire declined. And because that was a huge empire, it occurred over a period of time. The author had said, the question isn't why did they fall? The question is, why did they last so long? Because it seemed that they should have failed faster earlier. It took a while for it to build up. And it's like a lot of things in life, right? It built up. And then there was what seemed sudden and dramatic. Going, oh my gosh, how'd that happen so quick? It happened overnight after, it only took a couple hundred years to happen overnight. The problem was they failed internally first, and then were invaded and failed. Their failure was accelerated by external threats and attacks that they then couldn't respond to any longer because they had failed so much internally. They lost their way internally. They derailed from their core values, which made them a great empire to begin with. The leadership lost its focus on serving their people. They focused on bread and circuses. You may have heard that phrase. A lot of bread and circuses to distract the citizens from the real problems that needed to be resolved in order to be viable as a republic. Bread and circuses to distract people from the things they needed to do as citizens, their responsibilities as citizens, right? Because they're feeding them bread, feeding them entertainment. They're getting food, they're getting money from the government, and they're getting entertainment at the arena, and they're going, okay, fine, someone else will take care of it. So that was part of that internal decay that happens slowly. Happens in organizations as well. Can happen in smaller organizations. Um, Certainly can see it in very large organizations, in really big companies. That's why the Fortune 500 is constantly changing. It's market forces, but really the market is always dynamic. It's always changing. Those large companies can't stay in the Fortune 500 because they can't adapt fast enough. They're too focused on internally on what's going on. They've got their own version of bread and circuses going on because they're competing. It's human behavior, right? Your people, you get a bunch of alpha level men and women that are competitors. They're looking to they lead. They're looking to be the best. They want to be part of a team of the best. They're going to compete with each other, and that's positive in some dimensions, and it's negative if left out of control. This is why systems are so important, because it guides that energy within your company. It keeps people on track. It keeps things consistent with the values you founded the company on, that has made it a great organization, that has made it valued by your customers, right? It helps make it easier for your leadership team to screen out things that shouldn't be done. It makes it possible to recruit and attract the right people. Okay. So beware bread and circuses. Start small. There's little things. It gets distracted within negative competition, bad attitudes. You've seen it, right? You've experienced it. So beware of that, because it will eventually collapse your business from the inside out. You won't be able to scale. As you scale, it will build critical faults in, which will be your undoing as your company gets bigger. Because all of a sudden, something that's a crack becomes a canyon, and won't have time or resources to fix it. So beware of that. Systems, again, help prepare against that, because it keeps things guided, moving in the right direction. Something that can be tweaked and adapted when you're not getting the result that you need, right? So it makes it easier for your leadership team to do what you need them to do. Makes it easier for you to monitor that. Makes it easier for you to focus on what you need to do. So that's today's Wolf's Watch. I'm Wolf. Thanks for being part of the conversation, and I look forward to